How do I look, Ira?
You look okay.
Okay, okay. I'm just, because we go back a long way. If you're going to put that on the cover of the Sun Sentinel, just don't make me look like Garfield the cat or something like that. That means I spent too much time with my grandson.
Good for you.
There are no rules today, but there are some. I can't talk about a certain number of things, right? We're upstairs now trying to put together an algorithm to punch in all the numbers for the new CBA, so it's even hard to sort of figure that out, but we will. I don't even think they've finished it yet, but I really don't want to talk about all the rumors. We had a great season, this year. Just it was bizarre. It only reminds me of one other season that I've been through, and that was 1975 with the Phoenix Suns, who finished 8th, at that time and ended up in the finals against the Boston Celtics. I don't know if any of you go back that far, but it was quite a run from the 8th seed to the finals. But if you want to bear with me for a minute, maybe I can tell you a little bit of a story. You know what it is and where it started 27 years ago, is that this is a Mickey Arison, Madeline Arison, Pat Riley, Chris Riley culture. That's where it started. Mickey took care of the business. I took care of the basketball with everybody else. And Madeline and Chris started this whole family. It was more intimate back then, this whole family culture thing that we, to this day, feel like it's really what it is. But going back 27 years, this is now, to me, the 5th iteration of building teams. So it all started with Zoe and Tim, and then it ended up with Zoe, Tim, Juwan Howard, P.J. Brown, Dan Marley, Keith Askins. That crew for about 5 years. Terry Porter, came into the mix. That was a championship team that had nothing but frustrating endings to it, a little bit like this. And so that was the first iteration of the culture that we really believe in. That was the real hardest working, best condition, most professional type of culture, because that was almost acceptable back then, and how everybody practiced and how hard they were, the discipline, the accountability, and all that stuff. It's a little bit different today. Then there was a pause, and then we drafted Dwyane, and probably the most significant draft that we've ever had. Caron Butler was a pretty good pick too, and then getting Lamar Odom in free agency was an incredible opportunity to build a good young team. The key to that team was Udonis Haslem, who came in undrafted. He blew me away in the workout, and he said, "Coach, I can give you 3 days, and then I got to go to San Antonio because I promised Greg Popovich that I would give him a look." I offered him a contract, like right there. He says, "But I still have to go," and he came back and he signed with us. And 20 years later, here he is. So then it was the Dwyane and Shaq years. That was the second real iteration of a championship team with UD, obviously, and getting Antoine and Jay Will and Posey and Gary Payton. That was the Wild Bunch. But it ended up in a title, our first. Shaq left. Dwyane had 2 MVP years. Michael Beasley, I wish we could have kept him longer. And then the big 3 came along. And to this day, that team, putting that team together was very difficult. And then that first year, all we had were minimums based on the rules and stuff. And then the next year, we were able to get Shane Battier, then we got Ray Allen, then Chris Anderson came in, then Rashard Lewis, and we had 4 trips to the finals and 2 world titles. LeBron, leaves, Chris, God bless him to this day. And the same thing with Zoe in those pause years, became ill, and that set us back. And then the Jimmy Butler years. And all those years of the hopeful, at that time, I can say it, chasing free agents and whoever they were and not being able to sign them. Jimmy Butler said yes. And this is where we are. But the difference in going all the way back, to when Zoe came here and to UD, retiring, is that we have a good young core of guys that we didn't have then. We got Bam and we got Tyler. And I give all that credit to Chet and Adam, Eric Amsler, picking 13th and 14th or wherever they were at the time, that have turned into stars. And they're young. And so we have a great base with Bam and Tyler. And we got a great, great star, superstar, and Jimmy Butler. He's a whole different bag of tricks, let me tell you. And love him to death. And we have who I think is the best coach in the league. So I'm feeling good today as we work on our next iteration, with this team. I don't want to go through another pause. I think after our ride this year, it was just an incredible year, up and down. A lot of it had to do with missed games. I think we led the league or second in the league in missed games. And some of them were, guys that had surgery and were out and things of that nature. That created a lot of inconsistency in our game. But I agree with Coach that, the 25 clutch games that we played, there was a residual reward to that. And we saw it in the playoffs, that there was never any fear at the end of games that something could end. So we missed out on the 6th spot, which we're all disappointed in because we had to play in. We got hammered by Atlanta. And there was, I think, about 2 minutes to go in the Chicago game. We're down 1. And this is what I like about the season. I mean, it was all like down to the wire. It was exciting. It was like pulse pounding. I mean, and Jimmy Butler makes a 360 spinning layup, puts us ahead by 1, and we close it out. And there's a relief. But guess what? We got Milwaukee on Sunday. So we get them in game 1. We get New York in game 2. The first game, we get Boston in game 1 and game 2 and game 3. And I'm going, what is happening here? And that then goes to a 7th game. White's layup. I said, what happened? And so I've seen a lot of things in my career, but I have not experienced a year like this in a playoff run. And then we go up to Boston, and we beat them double digits, and we're in the finals. And I really thought against Denver, as great a team as they were, when we got that second game, I said, we got a real shot. This is going to happen. This dream's going to happen, because I'm a big-time dreamer. And that was it. That was our last win. And but we had a great year. I'm not going to go back on this season and say anything else other than kudos to our players, to our coaching staff, to everybody that was able to put us through one of the most exhilaratingly exhausting, stressed. I'm still sleep deprived, but that's when I start watching Garfield, in the middle of the night. I go into the other bedroom. She says, get out of here. Go to bed, go sleep somewhere else. And Connor's going to love hearing this. We'll play it for him. But it was just a great year. And so we're working now on our fifth iteration, if I can use that word, of building another championship team. And that's my goal. I have no other plans other than to do that. We have to see what happens in the next couple of weeks in free agency. I can't talk about that. All these rumors out there, I'm learning more about things in this league from you that I've ever learned in my life. I said, how can that happen? But anyway, your creativity is above and beyond, especially all of you who have been around here for the front row right here especially, a couple of veterans. Oh, by the way, coats and ties next year on the bench. Spo and I have already talked about this. We're having our first real marital spat in a long, long time, okay? And writers are not going to get in here unless they're coats and ties, even our guys over here in the black shirts. So that's just sort of a goal of mine. I want to get back to some kind of normalcy that I remember. I'm just kidding. But so far away. There are no rules, but there are rules, and I think you know what they are. Don't put me in a bad position, because when I start to talk, as you know, I'll probably recite Springsteen somewhere along the way, and you've got to bring me back to the center if I go off into another realm, okay?
Hi, Pat.
Hi, Barry.
So, with obviously the very punitive restrictions of the second apron in this new CBA, what's the organization's thinking about whether it ever wants to once or multiple times surpass that number, or has ownership decided that's just not something we're comfortable doing for a myriad of reasons?
Well, we've talked about it, so as I said, the algorithm has to be, so it's easy to pull it out and say this works, that doesn't work, and with these new the new rules that are coming are very punitive. But look at Mickey, he's a businessman, as I said at the beginning. I do the basketball, he does the business. And now he and Nick, they're really basketball guys too, not just business guys. And so that has to be thought of and planned out, because you can get yourself in trouble if you do something early. And so they are. They're committed to winning championships, and we're in the tax. So I think we have not been in the tax rate all the last 9 years. And Andy has been always making sure that we're working around the edges of the tax, trying to put together a competitive team, and we have. And then playing the 14th man on the roster. I don't know about all those things yet, but I think we as a league, everybody that you talk to, on the phone, that's all they talk about. But we have to get through this. But he's committed to doing whatever it takes to, fulfill this championship dream. It's been 10 or 11 years, so we're getting a little anxious here. We'd like to win another one.
You touched on some of this earlier, Coach, but how do you assess the totality of the year when it was so up and down the regular season? Like you said, you were 2.5 minutes against Chicago away from missing out on the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then you end up being, the next to last team standing, I guess, and you win the East. There's always that inclination when you're close to a title to quote unquote run it back. Mm-hmm. There's always, when you go through a tough year, there's an inclination to, for lack of a better term, blow things up. How do you find that middle ground right now with what this team can be and what you think this team needs in the next couple of weeks?
Well, okay, here I go. We're not going to take a wrecking ball to this thing. only some of us know what I'm talking about. Good times come, good times go. Hard times come, hard times go. We're not going to take a wrecking ball to a good team that had some real adversity this year that I felt built some strength. We have a good team, and probably a great team. And we wouldn't have gotten as far as we have, and there's no caveat in any of that, if you weren't a great team. And so running it back, yes, doing something that could help you with that last step, yes, if it's a possibility and if there's an opportunity without setting you back, while you're moving forward. It's just onward with us. It's onward. What's next? And so we just finished, and I'm diving deep into a draft that we have to get ready for on a Thursday night, and then free agency next week. So I don't have that urge, Tim. Persistence and perseverance has been something that's been part of my life forever, and just has been. And patience is the last thing that came with it. And so we're going to show some patience here instead of react without knowing what the consequences could be in doing something. So right now, this is what we have. Bam, I can talk till I'm blue in the face about his improvement. Tyler is, just an extraordinary scorer and fourth quarter player, big time shot maker. He's 23 years old. You got to watch it, with these guys. And last year he was out in the Eastern Conference Finals for almost 4 games with a groin, and this year he broke his hand. I'm a loose ball guy, ball on the floor, first guy to the ball. I'm going to caution him on his shooting hand, to go with his left hand or something. But, we missed him. People don't understand just how lethal he is in those moments. He gets bigger in the biggest of moments. He just does. We've seen it time and again, from the bubble to here. So, we've got 2 anchors in Bam and Tyler. Whatever your thoughts are about him, you say whatever you want. They can't guard you. How many people in this league, get singled out and say, okay, we're going to run a pick and roll, and we're going to switch, and we're going to bring Tyler up or Duncan up or Max up or Gabe up or whoever it was to create a mismatch, and that stuff, when you do the analytics on it, it's, whatever happens, but he's a player, and you got to think twice about. I don't know how I got into Tyler on this, but just bring me back to the center here, Tim. But anyway, it's that's how I feel about this team. I feel about him and about our young guys. We have a good anchors, and obviously we got good veterans, and we're excited about that opportunity. Yeah. Yes, Anthony.
Hey, Pat. The new CBA makes it really, really tough next offseason to complete a trade, right, as far as aggregating salaries and taking money in a trade. How much does that kind of test the patience and maybe change the way you guys think about certain opportunities, knowing that you guys have a window now for the next year or so before those rules go into place?
Well, I think what you're asking, it's the biggest difference in the CBA is that at one time there were just financial penalties. So if you can play for a championship and you're willing to pay the financial penalties of the luxury tax or the repeater tax, see, now it's different, because now you can't acquire talent. You might not be able to sign a buyout guy. You might not be able to use a mid-level. You might lose a draft pick. I mean, now they're going to penalize you in all those areas that we could be able to do something when you're over the tax to get better. Probably today, if we had the big 3, we wouldn't be able to sign Shane Battier or Ray Allen. Conceivably, I'm just putting that out there as an example. So, I think you have to take into account that the draft is important. Younger players on rookie scale contracts that can play. I think our development program has proven that these guys can play if you expose them somewhat to big moments. But what the question you're asking right now, I really don't have an answer to that, because these are all the consequences that will be coming in the next 2 or 3 years by the teams who are really a championship contending team, and how much they want to penalize themselves in the future. So there's really not a real answer to that right now, but it is something you have to give great thought to.
Hey, Pat. Jimmy, it's now been 4 years and 2 finals and one other time within a shot of the finals. Can you characterize kind of your relationship with him at this point? And I know obviously the desire is to win for the city, for yourself, for the organization, for everybody, but to get Jimmy in position to have his best possible chance to win a ring here and cap it that way.
He's a big boy. You know, I've never been a pat on the back guy going either way, and he's the same way. And I don't know what that means, but he understands what he has to do. And he's done it. He's done everything he could do within his power. And in the bubble last year, if he could take that 3 back, he would have made it. He just was off a little bit of rhythm on it. And this year, he was incredible in the beginning, and then welcome to big-time game planning. I don't think anybody game planned, Jimmy the way that Denver did. But also over the course of 9 weeks and 25 games, as teams are scouting up for the next round, they see what you do. And they know who to sell out on, and they know who to really cover. And so Jimmy, they made it very difficult for him, but he kept playing the game the way he always says. When he sits up here in front of this microphone, he's not BSing anybody. He plays the game the right way. He's not going to change. He's not going to force the issue. Sometimes he might have to, and he's done that. He knows when he has to go to work. But you're right. I would like to try to get him more support. And if that comes through the growth of our young players, especially Bam and Tyler, and if something happens, with some of our other guys, but right now it's on his shoulders, and that happens with a lot of great players. So I would love to be able to go out there and pick who I want. That's a perfect compliment to him, and it's not that easy. So, but we will work towards that, and I will pat him on the back the next time I see him, because he deserves it.
When you look at this current roster right now, and we're not getting into specifics, but there are some big names out there, is this core, in your view, good enough with just subtle additions to move forward? Or do you think, based on the competition out there, on other teams that you would have to beat to get back to where you were, to where Denver is, that maybe something, I guess, quote unquote, significant is the preferred path?
Well, it's the addition by subtraction. So, yes, you could add something, and then you could subtract. All of the things that hold up what you want to add. So, I mean, there's a fine balance there from that standpoint. But to answer your question, yes, I think the league has changed in such a manner. The style, the rules, the young players that are coming into this league. This is now my 6th or 7th generation of players, and so this generation of players are more talented than they've ever been. Younger guys are coming in more finished, more polished. They may not be as mature, but that will come, from that standpoint. So, to be able to answer your question, are we? Yes. Because I think the league has about 4 teams at the top, or maybe 5 teams at the top and 5 teams at the bottom. And so that leaves 20 teams in the middle. And anything can happen, as we showed this year. I mean, teams that are 500 teams, could get it going. They have enough talent to get it going. And if they're not playing the load management game, or guys resting during the regular season, maybe that was the difference between 53 and 44 wins. We missed a lot of games. And so, we have to think about all of these things that go on in today's game, but I think the way the game is being played, the reliance on the 3, it's a fast-paced game. The rules, you can't touch anybody anymore on the perimeter. It just makes for a more of an offensive game. And I think if you go back and take a look at our season, we had a poor offensive season from the standpoint of shooting the ball consistently versus the year before. And then we picked that up. That trended up somewhat after the All-Star break, and then it went through the roofs in the playoffs. I mean, the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, all that stuff went up to over 40% again, and guys were making shots. And And so we know we have that in us, but I think there will always be teams that have come out of the pack. I think Denver was the first champion in the history of the league that won a championship and never played anybody higher than the third seed or something like that. So first, second, third, fourth seeds might not be as significant as they used to be. Fighting for home court advantage, I believe, is important, but we found out that, having those 2 games at home against Denver, if we could have got one, and you go to the book of Hoyle on playoffs, if you could have got one, then you're in game 6. See if we can get to game 6. And so losing both those games at home really hurt us. We could never sort of stay one step ahead of the posse.
But to follow that up, there are times here it's time for the big move. You planned for years for the big 3. At other times,
Yeah.
Jimmy happened. You saw that coming to a degree with his going through several teams. This roster at this moment, when you look at it, there are big names apparently available. There already was one already available. In your view, does this team need to move big like you did during the Jimmy time, honestly based on the contract during the Kyle time and previously, or will subtle moves be enough to leave you content this offseason?
Subtle moves will be enough. If they're the right moves, will be enough during this offseason. Hitting the home run, as I said, it's addition by subtraction. And so you can go out. We've done this. We played this game for 27 years, and some of them we hit big, and I plan on hitting big again. But I'm not just swinging for the fences right now because it could be reckless, a little bit reckless, and after this year, I feel very good about where we are. But also, I agree with you. We need to improve. I mean, you take a look at all the rosters in the league, and they have the same issues that everybody else has when it comes to all these draconian rules that are coming in financially. So players might be more readily available than they've ever been because of that, as we can see. But you're trying to get me to talk about something that I can't, Ira. So I'm going to talk to you about Garfield and Odie and the crew. I'll trade for Garfield.
I tap out.
I know. Okay, I'm sorry.
Maybe it's along the same lines, but going back to earlier this season, what was the thought process at the trade deadline? When you evaluate the team at that point in time, was there a move available that you thought could have improved this team? And maybe it's hindsight being 2020, but given the fact that they went on this front to the NBA Finals, was there a move that maybe might have improved this team to the point where they could have challenged Denver a little bit more effectively?
Well, if you were specific in knowing who you're going to play, if you got to the finals, and right now I don't think there's anybody in the league individually that can play Nikola, Jokic. He's an incredible force, and he proved that individually at the elbow or at the nail and in the low box. He's really unstoppable, basically, and unless you double him, and then they have enough cutters and wherewithal with other players to be able to hurt you. So it's more than him. But yeah, you're going to have to somewhere, if you're thinking about beating a team like that, or let's say somebody who doesn't have a big center, but they have a slew of great perimeter players. Yeah, you have to have enough to match up. But as I said, there's 5 at the top, there's 5 at the bottom, and there's 20 in the middle. And so around the trading deadline, there wasn't anything that I felt that we could do that was going to change things, unless I gave up something. And I do think the assets that we have, draft capital that we have, financial assets, probably you would have to use and get rid of them. And I'm not interested in doing that right now. We've done that in the past to shed salary, to be able to stay under the tax and all this stuff, but there wasn't anything specific at the trading deadline. And at that time we felt that it was beginning to trend, let's let this go, and then look where we ended up. So, You just never know. Sometimes you could do something and you go the other way with it. I liked our team, and I thought the two players that we picked up, I thought K-Love and Cody gave us some good minutes. K-Love especially changed the dynamic of our team from that standpoint. So sometimes it doesn't have to be a huge trade. It can just be an addition, as Ira was talking about.
Hey, Pat. When you were talking about some of the improvements, subtle or otherwise, things that can get you over the hump in a championship series, like what specific, I'm not going to ask you about specific players, but what specific like, skill sets, areas of need, like what are the kinds of things that you might be looking for that could put you guys over the top?
Well, I've always been a talent first guy, and so the draft will be either best player available or positional need, and there's a lot of good players there. You know, when you talked about Bam Adebayo, you know, back when we drafted him or Tyler, everybody sort of rolls their eyes a little bit about what can happen with these young players, but I think they're more advanced. And so probably I would say more overall wing size and length. I mean, that's, I think, what everybody is looking for. And, you know, multiple position players, especially ball handling players or two-way kinds of players. I mean, you know, back in the old days, you know, I mean, you were a point guard, you're an off guard, a small forward, power forward, you know, center. I mean, and by the way, you know, back in the day, you know, those players played their position defensively. We didn't mix anybody, you know. Zoe, you got Shaq, you know. PJ, you got drawn out, whatever. It's, you know, the guards took the guards, and we never switched. We never did anything. It was a different game. So now you need real versatility in a lot of ways. And you got to be able to shoot the ball. If you can't shoot the ball, then you better be really great at something else, you know. And so the versatility and length, you know, that kind of stuff as we move forward, we'll emphasize probably.
Pat, good to see you. Based on some of the things you talked about options for moves, particularly this offseason, where is the point as an executive, as a decision maker, do you say, okay, the addition by subtraction is worth it? Like, when do you know, okay, we need to give to receive, and when does that happen? Like, what's that moment, what you're looking for?
Well, it will depend on the moment, and it would depend on a specific transaction. And, you know, we're at a point as an organization, you know, with Andy, you know, being a master at what he does and figuring out a lot of that stuff, which is very important, and Adam Simon, Eric Amsler, you know, Keith Askins, you know, Zoe, you know, all the people now that are part of this decision-making, Nick, you know, process, there's a great rapport. And to be able to be skeptical but listen to each other is very important. And so when it comes to that time, it isn't though everybody has a vote, but everybody has a voice. And we try to speak with one, as we do with Eric, and he's a great coach and a great voice. To watch him grow over the years, you know, as a coach has been one of the proudest things that's ever happened to me. You know, and so, but we need, you know, and I'll finish with this is because, you know, UD is, you know, a pretty unique guy, you know, from that standpoint. You want one more? Oh, okay, no, I just said I was going to finish up, but it's okay. Before I finish up, do you want to ask me a question? No, because then it would be anticlimactic. Or it would be post-climatic. Whatever. Ira, you've been doing this here 27 years. You're sitting in that front row. Could we change his seat, please, Tim, and put him like over there where Anthony is? Okay. Eric, you agree with me on that? Yeah, we need to move him from that corner. Yes, sir.
Signaling to my good friend Maddox. Finish it.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just asked by one of the TV outlets, because they might not see you again, if you could, when you're done with your other thoughts, talk a little bit about Dwyane Wade's induction to the Hall of Fame, since we might not see you again until then.
Obviously, I'm, and I understand why, the Hall of Fame changed the date from after Labor Day to August. Has all of us coming back from vacations, to Dwyane. And, but I'll be there, wholeheartedly, I mean, Wade I love him to death. He's a forever guy. I miss him. He was great when I saw him here for games 3 and 4. He's so deserving. He was the first player that we drafted that, basically is, and it tells you something about how we operate around here. All the players that we brought in that were really, really good and significant players were either through trades and stuff. And so Dwyane is the lone draftee, basically, that we drafted that's going to be a Hall of Famer. And it's going to be a great night. It's going to be a great party. And I'm so proud of him, and I just can't wait for it to happen because it's something that you dream about, as a player and as a coach. You never think it's going to happen to you. If I could do mine over again, I'd do mine over. It was like 3 hours. It was about 3 hours for me before I got up there. And if I could do it over again, I'd do it over again. And say something different than what I said, but you can't. You don't get do-overs in those things. So I can't wait for him to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it'll be a great moment for us. And to finish my point about UD is that, I texted him the other day. I didn't bring him in on an exit meeting. We've had enough of those. He's special to this organization, as is a lot of players who have played for us. And there's not much more to say about Udonis other than I said to him, chill out, spend time with your family and your friends, and, someday we'll talk, in the future about things. And the impact that, that players have. I can remember it was it March 9th? I think March 9th, 2020. I think it was the night of the gala prior to March 11th that they shut the season down. And March 9th was the night that I found out my brother died. And it was at the gala, and I walked outside. I took the call from my nephew, and I was just hanging on a chain link fence. And then I felt this hand on my shoulder, and it was UD. He said, "I got you." He walked into my car, and so that's the kind of man he is. He's special. He's unique. We're going to miss him, but he'll be around. He'll be around us a lot. Thank you all, and I'll see you maybe next year. No.
Omar, do you plan to tender him a qualifying offer?
I ain't going to talk about that right now. Okay, no. Right now, okay. Not right now. Let's get through the draft, and then I'll send you a message on that, okay? I have you in my contacts. Don't worry. Okay, everybody.